Hello and welcome back to the podcast, We Are Selling. My name's Lee Woodward, your coach and host, and today I have a beautiful change of direction. I'm bringing in one of the top international coaches from Indiana in the USA. He joins me now, Austin Chevron. Austin, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Lee. It's good seeing you. It's been a couple months, and now we're back at it. This is what I was hoping would happen when we met, so thank you.
Yeah, for our audience, we were both speaking in the UK at the same time. I was day one as the support band of you on day two. It was a wonderful conference and well put together, and that was for EXP. Just for our Australian and UK audience that may not know you, give us your background.
So the quickest story of my background, I'm 42, been married 19 years, which is really important for real estate agents to understand, which means I've been through it and still stay married. I got 2 kids. I put family first. At the age of 6, my dad got in real estate. So 85% of my life's been around real estate agents. At the age of 12, my dad was the manager of one of the largest real estate companies in the United States. So I grew up with the best of the best, Lee. And that's important to know as part of the vision will come out and why I do what I do. At 18, I started to get my license, so I became an active real estate agent. And at 28, I put myself on welfare. I don't know what they call that over in Australia, but that's when you put your hands out and say, please help me. I can't survive on my own. I say that because we all hit our bottom at some point normally, and that was mine. Got my vision right, which is a key word for everything I'll talk about. It's vision. At the age of 32, I became one of the top agents in the state of Indiana. At the age of 33, I started coaching and training Lee. So almost a decade ago, my first task was 100 agents I took on. And then from there, started to grow a team, built one of the top teams in the nation. I essentially say God struck me in the head with a lightning bolt, put me in the hospital. I thought I was done. And from there, I simplified my life and I just coach, speak, I write books now, and I do the things that I would do for free, essentially, Lee. That's kind of where I'm at.
That well qualifies you for today's podcast.
Yeah, we can keep going.
That's a brilliant background. I love hearing people's backgrounds because everyone's got a story. And as you know, from the coaching perspective, we're helping people with that story all the time. And there comes a defining moment in the international world of selling, where selling is a transference of feelings and coaching is a transference of feelings, where people need to profit from that knowledge and have that navigation. And that's exactly what we're going to do today as coach to coach, as you do exactly what I do in another different part of the world, and we get pulled to another part of the world where we finally meet, and it's meant to be. And what I want to do today is discuss teams. So last week on our program, Austin, we went through the financials, and that was quite a dry topic as people didn't understand how that had to be done. So that went down well. And then today, I want to talk about working in a team and the cultures. Everyone talks about culture, but they don't really go into it in a team. Take us into your observation and what you've learned of how teams can stick together and hold it all together.
Well, the best way that I can describe it is we've all heard of a lion. The lion's the king of the jungle. The lion's the alpha predator. Well, when a lion hunts, Lee, do you know what their success rate is when they hunt?
I don't.
It's about 15%, give or take, which for the alpha, the top apex predator, 15%, it's like, okay, that's what it is. I guess everyone else is below that. Well, there's things called wild African dogs. Are you familiar with those things?
I'm not.
Wild African.
We have kangaroos over here.
But they're really small dogs. And what they do, Lee, is they hunt in packs. So instead of hunting by yourself, not all lions hunt by themselves, but instead of hunting by yourself, they hunt in packs. These wild African dogs, they're probably 10%, 5% of the weight of a lion in the size, but their success rate, Lee, is 85% when they hunt.
Wow.
And so wow is the right word. So when we look at the culture of a team, what I figured out is if we hunt together, no matter how big or small we are, if we hunt together, we'll win. And what I call that at the end of the day, that was our culture. Our culture is we work together and we win together.
This is so interesting because no matter who you are in the world of real estate, we are in sales and service. And having a team-based approach, we get to reach more of the community more often and in a different service level. So as you know, the analogy of a cafe, if you ran your own little coffee shop, take the order, you make the coffee, then someone orders an egg and bacon roll, and suddenly you're over there, you can't do everything. Then the next customer comes in and they're like, I'm not going to wait that long. You can't do it all. You're trying to wear every single hat in the ring. Whereas when someone specializes in the purchasing community and making sure buyers get that information straight away and there's an opportunity for them to understand the marketplace where it is, we get a completely different outcome of your team were amazing to deal with versus I can't get hold of you, you were gone for 2 hours. And I think agents, when you come in as a solo agent, you're not carrying that many deals. So you've got this incredible opportunity to give great service. And I always use that analogy of if I had a glass of water and it was 85% full, that would represent me with one customer. But if I widen the glass, the water level drops and I barely cover the bottom, and that's now me with 20 listings or customers, and I barely can remember the people I've signed up due to I've hit my capacity in what I do. Austin, you teach a lot in that time management space, and also you specialize in the money space, and your new book's just come out, which is
The Money Puzzle.
And what was the thinking behind the money puzzle?
Well, I get chills when you actually ask me that, Lee, because I say this, when you get your money right, you can do what you want to in life, not what you have to. And because I got my money right, I was able to ask myself, if I could do anything I wanted to do, what do I want to do? And what came to me was, how do I document the things that I've done right that the world's struggling to figure out? And don't get me wrong, I was struggling at one point too. And what that was money. I figured money out. I took 60 days, Lee. I locked myself in my office, 60 days. My wife's like, when are you leaving? I'm like, I'm not done yet. And I wrote everything I knew about money. And after 30 days, I popped out. I called my cousin up and I said, hey, I think we got a problem. He said, what's that? I go, I didn't write anything about making money. Think of that for a second.
Yeah.
I wrote everything I knew about making money or about money, and I didn't write anything about making money. And he said, why is that a problem? And I told him, I said, Lee, I don't think anybody's going to want to hear that story. And he said, is it true? And I said, yep. And he goes, keep writing. And so after 60 days, I was able to come up with the context of the money puzzle and the content and what it was about financial stewardship. And I wanted to document all this for my kids. I didn't grow up really that wealthy. We grew up lower middle class. And my kids are going to have a different, my kids are like, Dad, he's an international speaker. He owns more houses than everybody. He's successful. All these things. And I'm like, no. I want you to know how I did this. What was the step so they can duplicate it? And when I got done, I got the money puzzle out of it. And I thought, man, this is just a great book on stewardship. And you're in I love listening to your training, by the way, Lee.
Thank you.
You were speaking. I loved it. And it reminded me of the money puzzle. And what I mean by that, one of the pieces in there, I asked Lee, how many trainings have you had about how to make more money in your life? What would be, if I had to ask you that, Lee, think of all the trainings you've had. How many trainings do you think within 100 or 1,000 have you had about how to make more money? How to claim more doors?
Good book. So yeah, everything's about transactional thinking, but it's not about retention of those funds. And this is what last week's audio put some light on, and today's connecting to that. And I was really excited you were available to share your time with us, because you are the missing piece of the puzzle of teams, because the teams, everyone's taking, but they're not contributing. And this happens in communities where, there's a lot of people living in the area, but they don't put any money back into the community. They hold on to it and then go off to another country and spend the money there. And when all the money passes hands, the question is, what did you contribute? And if you're working in a team, there's a thing called a commitment list. Austin, for you and I, we both work in the podcasting world. And when you're doing a podcast every week, it's a commitment. You can't go, oh, maybe not next week, I'll give it a miss. I'm sick. Tell everyone, hi everyone, there is no podcast today because I couldn't be bothered. You've got a commitment to do it, and that's part of it. How do you see that connecting into, where does it connect to the book?
Money is the least important thing in life, I would say. It's on the list, but it's at the bottom of the list. But when your money's not right, it becomes the most important thing. And everything else becomes second. You start chasing the dollar. And I ask myself, like, why is this? Why do people, how is their minds like this? And what I was asking you earlier is what I realized. I've trained real estate agents and been a real estate agent. I mean, tens of thousands of them. And what I realize is everybody teaches you how to make money and no one teaches you how to save it. And because of that, you spend your whole life chasing it. And when you're chasing something, it's really hard to contribute positively over here. But when you got your money right, it's easier to be a contributor because you now have an abundance mindset compared to scarcity. Scarcity says, Lee, I can't go on your podcast today. I got to go make money. Austin, I can't be on your podcast today. I got to go show property. I got to go list property because I need money. When you get your money right, it's a lot easier to contribute. So on our team, Lee, one of the things that I asked myself in the beginning, before we even started, I would pause everybody for a second and say this. If you're going to start a team, I want you to ask yourself this. What do real estate agents need? Not what do they want, not what do you have, but what do they need? And what we realized is that they need the right culture to thrive in. They need systems to run on, and then they need coaching. They need guidance. And so those were the three things that we built our real estate team on. And everybody, when we first did it, said, well, you're not providing leads, you're not doing this. And I'm like, no, we're just going to build the human being. And what's funny, Lee, just like you, I just poured in and coached the heck out of these agents. And because of it, we became one of the top teams in the nation, in the USA, in about 2.5 years. And we had 25 agents on our team. We're competing with teams with 200 to 300 agents. We were the wild pack of African dogs running around and hunting and just slaying it, Lee. And my philosophy is I don't give you anything, but what I'm going to provide you is what you can't buy, the culture. We're all seeds in life. If you plant the seed of Lee Woodward in good soil, Lee grows huge. If you plant it in bad soil or on rocky ground, Lee doesn't grow at all. And so how do we then create the culture for that seed, that human being to thrive in? And then how do you give them systems and your keynote presentation, Lee, was, I told my clients who are sitting next to me, I go, that guy's good. He's putting all this in order. Here's exactly what you do. When I got done, I was impressed. I was like, this is good. This is good stuff.
No matter where we go in the world, you can be from different countries, but you can't get out of sequences. If you're going to run a team, there's a lead generation sequence, there's a lead conversion sequence, and there's a client fulfillment sequence. And no matter where we are in the world, it's going to be the same. The laws change, but people, property, and title doesn't. If you don't have a system for claiming doors, you don't have to worry about the other two because you've got no one to represent. But when you get the door, will you live up to the brochure when the cape was flying of everything we do and how amazing we are? And then when it actually hits the market, this is the most important part. Will you protect the asset and get the profit the owner deserves so that your number one listing stream in the future is the customer experience of we listed our property with Austin and his wonderful team, and there was no comparison between them and the others. It was well worth that extra investment to achieve what we did. And when the consumer feels that way about you and passes your name on to others, then the famous words of Charles Tarby, method of introduction becomes your currency in the community where people are, you've got to ring Austin, you've got to ring Lee, you've got to ring Sally, because nothing real can be threatened. You're doing such a good job. And that was actually a slide I showed at that conference in explaining that to people, that nothing real can be threatened means if you've done the work, you don't have to worry about will it work or not. You've done the work. If you haven't done the work, do the work, listen to the audio, take the actions so that you can become the person that people deserve to have represent them.
Yeah, that's if you have the right culture and you have the right systems, Lee, they still need a coach. They need a me and you. They need somebody to guide and to show them like, hey, you're doing the system, but you missed the step. And this is why you failed. You missed sending the marketing flyer to the property, and that's why the whole system backlashed on you. And so the last piece was the coach. When you get that stuff right, Lee, it's It's easier than people think, but you got to get the right ingredients in. If you don't get the right ingredients in, the cake's not going to turn out. And what most team leaders, so I come in to fix a lot of companies. Normally what needs fixed is expectations are off and financials are off. And what I mean by expectations is there's no standard protocol of how we do things, what's expected. And next thing you know, the team leader's like, hey, I made more money when I was a solo agent than I was a team. My life was easier and I had a vision for my life to be better. That's why I did this and I want to help. But man, this isn't what I thought. I'm not making as much money. I'm working harder. Business is tougher. I got more companies, more books, more of everything. I thought this was supposed to be better, Austin. And the problem was it normally starts with culture and expectations, systems and processes, and then the coach and the guide. And when you get those three things right, it happens. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You know, there's the Navy SEAL team where you guys all do what you need to do. And then we become the best, like, hey, this is my job and I dominate this job. And then this is my job and I dominate. It sounds like that happens a lot over where you're at, Lee.
Yeah, our most successful teams are doing the SEAL team. And then there's people who thought they were a team, but they were an agent and three helpers. And the three helpers are running around like lunatics, not knowing where to go and what to do. And I'll just tap into something I think you said so powerfully there. You know, when an agent says, I earned more money when I was solo, if we unpack that or strip back behind the scenes what's happening, when you worked alone, you were like 80% effective in efficiencies because there was only you to do things. Now there's another two of you and you've dropped down to 30% because you're trying to coach them thinking they know what they need to do and don't, and they don't know because you went too early. You don't have a listed to settle checklist. So for example, and this is a good analogy for anyone listening, let's say you want to go on holiday, Austin, and your training company over there, and you think, oh, but geez, I've got all these sessions booked and so forth, but I want to have 2 months off with my family. Who's going to keep the Chevron coaching company going? And I say, mate, I'll do it. I'll pop over there. You and I have got similar skills. I'll step in. As soon as I step into your studio, your environment, your world, I'll say, so where's the systems and processes? How do I turn on the black magics? Where's all the stuff for me to do your gig? And if that isn't documented, although I've got the ability to do it, I'm in your world now, not my world. Whereas if you turned up here, there's a complete checklist to run the complete salesperson course. And you could say, wow, Lee, I know exactly what Lee's saying, but this is the sequence of his recipe if you were to do my gig over here in Australia. And I think in agent land, the agent assumes that that's the way it's done and the tentacles get out too far and they are just devastated that I can't believe that happened in my business, that was done or that was said. We never say that. Who's this we part? You've never documented who you are and what you do. So what's a coachable moment today, Austin? How are you getting people to get that right?
Let me back up one step before that, because you are exactly right, Lee. Where the problem actually exists before that, you as a solo agent, you don't even have your stuff done properly. You know what I'm talking about now. Like, you're not even duplicatable as a solo agent. Your business isn't being ran properly. You don't have good financials. You don't have SOP. You don't have anything. And next thing you know, you're building multiple people. And so the problem then scales and it scales big. And next thing you know, you're getting calls all nights and weekends with all these problems. You're like, how did we get here? So the question becomes is how do we fix it? My keynote when I was over in the UK, it's funny, my client who was sitting next to me there, they said, what's the difference between what Lee's talking about and what you're talking about? And they asked me when you were done. Yeah, that was. And I said, what's funny is I said, there's different levels of conversations, not better or worse, but like there's different levels. Lee talked about when your boots are on the ground, here's what you do. Here's your steps. Here's the exact process laid out like it should be every time. And they go, well, what do you talk about, Austin? I said, I talk about how you think about everything. If you can think about everything correctly, then we can have a plan on what to do. But you got to have the thinking and you got to have the plan. And so my presentation was more about how they think. So when I come into teams, it's like, why are you doing this in the first place? Sounds like a headache. Why are you even doing this? Like, well, I want to help people. Well, do you want to help people at your cost, or do you want to make money and help people? Well, I have to make money. Okay, well, how well are you doing? Not well. Okay, well, and so I start to question them and I make them think, why are we doing this in the first place? What do we want it to look like? How does this serve your life? One of the very last slide, actually, Lee, is the purpose of a business is to support the lifestyle of the business owner. That was my slide that I ended on. The purpose of a business is to support the lifestyle of the business owner. And so then I asked the team leader, well, how well is that working for you? And so a lot of my work's around the thinking. If I can get the thinking right, then we can get the actions right. But if the thinking's not right, the actions, they're not consistent enough. I'm like, here's Lee's playbook. Go do this. Well, the thinking is, well, I'm going to stay up late at night and drink and party with my friends. It's like, well, you can't do that because then you don't wake up on time and you don't do Lee's playbook. And Lee's playbook starts at 9 a.m. and you're showing up at 10:30. The thinking's wrong. And why do you want to do all this? And it goes back to the very start, which is vision. Why would you do any of this at all? What is your life's purpose? What do you want out of this? What is your vision? And once we get the vision right, then we can work it all the way down to this is what we do, this is how we do it, and now you know why you're going to do it.
So powerful. And professional thinking is a skill. I know people can look at something and go, oh, that's this. The owner's greedy. The buyer won't come up. Top agent in professional thinking will think, how did I not get the owner to better understand that? I have a duty of care that they do take this offer, but I haven't explained it well enough. I need to go in with more facts, evidence, and then suddenly the playbook and skills are there versus it didn't work. I tried it. And people say this to me all the time, Austin. They go, Lee, I tried that. I read your book, Claiming Doors, and I did day one of it and it didn't work. So I'm going to move on to something else. I go, yeah, very good. One day. And they go, yeah, all right. You don't just get this right in one go. You need to understand the depth of the information and then start to apply yourself to do it. Like I've got 10,000 agents on Claiming Doors. The difference is the commitment and the consistency to it versus I want to do it once and I want it to work well. Life just doesn't work that way. Actually, I remember you mentioning a comment once, Austin, of you're at the back of the room, big keynote coming up, and someone was coming up to speak to you. I think it was one of the other speakers. And they said, so what do you do? And you said, I'm a box of errors or something like that. And
I said, I just got a box of failures is all yeah.
And it's just take us into that comment. Why was that?
Before I get there, Lee, what was really funny is one of the people that was running the conference that we were at said, I wish I would have had you speak on day one and Lee speak on day two, because I think they would have done more about what Lee said if we could get their thinking right first. And I'm like, that's it. You get the thinking right, then the action. They're like, we did the action, then the thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we all learn, right? We all learn. And it's a story that has a great meaning, which is failure. We are our failures. It's funny. I was number 2 at this real estate company in sales, and the number 1 agent called me up and he said, hey, are you Austin? I go, yep. What's up? He goes, my name's David was his name. And he said, hey, do you only have 25 agents? So it was this question to me. I go, yeah, why do you want to know? He goes, how are you selling so many homes with only 25 agents? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, we have 300 agents on our team and you're like 5 sales behind us. And sometimes when you get the alphas, Lee, you give them a little uppercut. You see what they do? And I said this to him. He was either going to hang up or we were going to become friends. I said this to him. I said, let me ask you this. Do you buy leads for your agents? He goes, absolutely. I go, we don't. Mic drop, conversation done. He ends up hiring me to coach his team. And so I flew out to the keynote. I was the keynote for his conference. I'm sitting in the back. I'm in my suit. I'm sitting in the back. I'm not trying to talk to anybody, but I'm watching and learning. And the keynote for day 1, his head salesperson was sitting next to me. And he was in this bright suit. You could tell he was an extrovert, Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm an introvert and he's an extrovert. And I'm like, oh, that's the last thing I want to do is talk right now. And he says to me, he goes, hey, tell me about you. And he thought I was an agent on the other team. So I started talking to him a little bit and I just wanted to kill the conversation, Lee. And so I just said, Mike, I said, I'm just a guy with a big box of failures, is what I told him. And he said, that sucks. And he stopped talking to me. The next day I go speak on stage. And when I come off, he's sitting there and he's looking at me and he's like, you come here. And he said, I thought you just said you had a big box of failures, is what he said to me. And I go, well, how do you think I got up on the stage? And it all of a sudden turned the conversation to, if you're not failing enough and learning and thinking about it, you're never going to be successful. And most people are afraid to fail. They're afraid to take your course. They're afraid to go all in with it. They're afraid to commit. And if you're not going to take your course, if you're not going to read the book and fail, you're never going to succeed, Lee. And you know that as well as I do. Failure is part of the ingredients. And I've just failed more than most people. And I get back up and I have a vision and I keep going to where I'm trying to get to.
So powerful. You look at anyone who's achieved great success, and what is great success? It's different to everyone. But people ask me that about speaking. How have you been able to do what you've done? One train wreck after another is the answer. You put a big conference on and no one turns up because you think it's going to be easy. And no, there's a lot more depth required before people release, $1,000 in funds to learn the system. And when they turn up, is the documentation good? Is it been thought out? And how many times has it been sequenced and replicated? And bringing this back to a team of our conversation today, because it's such an important one about professional thinking, the culture. If you are setting up a team, have that expectation that it's not going to work straight away. You've got to get it to work. And it's not, does it work? It's, can you get it to work? There is a significant difference in that professional thinking. But I think people do think it's going to be easy. And in my experience, easy is a word people use when it's not their job. They'll walk into a house and say, we can remove those walls. That'll be easy. Have you ever removed structural walls in a house? It is not easy at all. And the builder's thinking, you've just used the word easy. It's not. It takes a lot of skill, dedication, and effort to bring that together. So, Austin, my final questions to you, because people have got to go do the work. You're not going to get all the answers in the podcast. Today's to trigger your thinking of the work you need to do. In a podcast like this, it's such a great opportunity to understand the professional thinking and sequencing. But for anyone trying to put teams together today, what would you ask them to give consideration to get the success they are after?
Before you start a team, go get educated. Go reach out to Lee, go reach out to Austin, reach out to someone who's been there, who's done it, who understands. And go seek the guidance, figure out what they've done right, what they've done wrong. Because if you start your team with no knowledge of how to do it, there's about a 96% chance and a 1 to 2 to 3 years, you're going to have to start back over. And by then you've lost 3 years and $100,000, $200,000 or pounds or whatever your currency is. It's gone. And by the way, you're not happier or more successful or closer to your goals. So invest a little bit of time, invest a little bit of money, and find somebody who's been there. Find a mentor or guide who has, this is huge, has the playbook already in place. Not just who's done it, but who's done it and who's documented it. Because if they haven't documented it, you can't see the steps. And people can't just tell you randomly what to do. There's a sequence, as you said. And when you get the sequence rightly, it's like magic. It happens faster and better and with less failure and more profitable.
Absolutely amazing. Chevron coaching, guest DJing on the We Are Selling program here in Australia. Austin, are we going to see you in Australia at some stage in the future?
You know what? I was just thinking my wife would kill me if I said this out loud, but maybe I come out to Australia and we hang out and we impact some people one time, Lee. I haven't been there yet.
We would love to have you, and we'll bring you into the Complete Salesperson course, Hunter Valley, out in the wineries there, which is what I'm doing next week. That particular one is a retreat. Your wife would love it, and we'd love to have you here with us.
Well, Lee, if I come out there, just give them a warning. We're not messing around.
Austin, thank you for appearing on the program. I would love to have you on again in the future. And final question for you. Over there in the States right now, there's a lot going on. What is happening on the ground with the agents with all the turbulence?
Over the years with COVID, Lee, here in the States, when COVID happened, it opened up our real estate market and everybody got their real estate license. I mean, about another, I'm going to guess 600,000 people, pushing us up to about 1.6 million real estate agents.
Wow.
Which was, because everybody needed a job. And so they got into real estate. Anybody can get into real estate. And what happened, the market tightened up and we had an oversupply of real estate agents and an undersupply of houses. And here in the States, for real estate agents, it's getting really tough. I think I just saw a stat that 79% of real estate agents did not sell a house this year.
Wow.
79%. And so our agents are going down from 1.6 million to probably hitting 1 million again. So I would say our market's becoming more stable for agents here. But we've had a huge increase in pricing and home pricing over the last 5 years, like I've never seen. And that's on one side really good, but on the other side, it leads a lot of people to not know how to navigate. They don't know how to sell the homes. They're only been in the market, a real estate agent, for a year. They don't know that same house that was $400,000 used to be $200 3 years ago. And then the seller's mindsets and the buyer's mindsets and the agent who's writing the offer saying, this is never going to be, I sold this house back in 2010 for $118,000. And so there's just a lot of missing wisdom right now in our market. And I think that's the best thing, is to say the wisdom's gone. The deals are there, let's say, but the agents don't know how to properly do them. Lee, houses were selling on average in 2 days in the States, 2 days. Agents don't know how to reduce a property. They have no clue. Somebody who's been an agent for 2 years has never reduced a property.
So
look at that for a second.
I'll come over there and do a session on improving the price. Which is
crazy.
It's the skill. Austin, absolutely amazing to have you with us. And I'll put a link down to your wonderful book and site with all your coaching, Chevron Coaching. And thank you for joining us on We Are Selling.
Thank you, Lee.
Today's program is brought to you by the Agencies Portal, Australia's first AI platform, which saves 7 to 12 hours of admin per listing. It includes agency settlements, which removes 90% of the settlement admin, reduces risk but keeps you in control. Visit theagencyportal.com.au or call 1300 001 371. I'm Lee Woodward. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week.